Grabar la voz de Freddie Mercury para Bohemian Rhapsody fue un problema tremendo para esta película que hasta le rompió el sueño a un verdadero fan por hablar de más. Quizás lo tengan presente, quizás no, pero el rodaje de Bohemian Rhapsody fue un caos absoluto. Echaron a su director Bryan Singer antes de que terminara la película, tuvieron que salir a rodar más escenas para hacer algunos parches, encima el estudio insistía para que hicieran una película a lo Mamma Mía y además estuvo en medio el ego de la banda. Sí, es una obviedad, pero nunca está de más aclarar que Queen tuvo mucha voz y mucho voto a la hora de hacer Bohemian Rhapsody y el que terminó pagando los platos rotos fue un tipo que habló de más. Estoy hablando de Mark Martel, un imitador de Freddie Mercury que canta tan pero tan bien que fue contratado para hacer las canciones de la película. Los rumores dicen que la voz que escuchamos en la película es una mezcla de Mark con la voz de Rami Malek y con la del propio Freddie Mercury. Pero ¿fue así? Fíjense lo que me cuenta John Ottman, el editor que ganó el Oscar por Bohemian Rhapsody, porque la anécdota es increíble.
We now return to Mira Akian and Contre with our latest interview.
I always had a sense that it would be something the audience would embrace based upon the script and so forth, but I wasn't sure at all. And I was you're always before you start a film, you have trepidation about all the pieces falling into place and making it something you can work with and make it a great film.
You're a legend, Fred. We're all legends.
As you might know, the first thing we shot was the Live Aid sequences. And the moment I saw the symbiotic relationship among the cast, and also that they were all cast so well, I felt such relief because now I could mold the clay any way I want to, and not have to feel restricted because some actor is bad, or something. So I just felt very positive about it.
Escape from reality.
I know you have a background as a composer and you work with Bryan in several of his films doing the music. How did this help you through the process of the film? Because it's a musical, so I don't know if a musical like in the strict definition of a musical, but you have music in it, so
right.
Maybe it helped you.
It helped me immensely, of course, because I have a musical sense, and also I know how to work with stems. Stems are the separate elements in a song. So you have your drum track, your bass track, your voice track, whatever. And Queen gave us all of those elements. So I had all of those elements in my Avid, which is the editing system I was using. And so I could basically kind of, use the different elements of the music to score sequence and so forth, and favor certain instrumentations in concert scenes and so forth for a rough mix. I mean, that wasn't the actual mix in the movie, of course. Then once I create that template, and it's approved by the band and so forth, then we go to, of course, a professional mix stage, and we do it with the surround tracks, and you have a guy who knows what he's doing about mixing the music even more precisely. So obviously my musical background helped a lot. It made complete sense that I did the film.
What's the lyric?
I don't know if you were involved, with your background as a musician, as a composer, in the mixing of his voice with Freddie and with the one from this Canadian, I think, singer that recorded the songs. How was working with all that?
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, because again, I do a lot of sound work in the when I'm editing the film. But there really wasn't. It really was Rami and just crossing over from Rami's voice to Freddie Mercury's voice. We initially had a sound-alike doing Freddie's voice for all the songs, and it sounded fantastic because sonically it was fresh recording.
Yeah.
And we were going down that road, and it was great because it was Freddie Mercury, but kind of closer to Rami's voice. And the guy who did that voice work got really overly excited and went online and told everyone about how amazing his this is going to be and his voice work, and it really irritated the band, and so they said, well, fuck him, we're going to use Freddie's voice. And so it's
Freddie's voice, not Rami's.
It's not Rami's. No, in the song tracks are all Freddie's voice. I always called that Live Aid the Death Star sequence, because if that didn't work, the whole film was fucked, you know. And so that Live Aid sequence kept me up at night for a year, because that was the first thing we shot, and I would tinker with it and work on it for the entire duration of the film until the very end, until I had it the way I wanted it, because we had a lot of footage. And also we had a lot. I had a temp. I could do whatever I wanted, because, as you know, they did not we did not perform that in an amphitheater or anything. It was just a parking lot, so I could do whatever I wanted to visually, because it was all CGI with the stands and with the crowds and so forth. There was amazing technology where we scanned, you know, maybe 100 people or whatever, and then you can basically, I could do any angle I wanted to do and move the camera, and the perspective would change on the people. So I think emotionally I was able to really milk the sequence by waiting and holding off, and at the emotional moment showing the entire stadium, you know, in like a massive wide shot, because I found that Queen's music is very interactive. And so if I didn't show the audience for a certain amount of time, it started to not work. I had to keep the audience involved. I mean, the fake audience, you know, the film audience, the audience in the film, involved in their music, and show how it was affecting them. So I went out with second unit director and shot even more crowd close-ups, you know, the actual extras, and really creating some emotional shots with them, because without those shots, it wouldn't have worked.
Do it again. One more. How many more Galileos do you want? Roger, there's only room in this band for one hysterical queen.
There was a change of director in the middle of the production. What changed for you then?
Well, not in the middle. It was we had about 2 weeks to go, or 2 weeks and change. And so the replacement director came on, and he shot what was left. I storyboarded a scene, and I could tell you all about that if you want to. And we went and shot that, because one of the big sequences we didn't work, so I had to sort of rewrite it myself. And then I went with Dexter Fletcher was his name, on the set with him, and we shot that. But what was I gonna say? Oh, so Dexter only stayed on for a couple weeks into post, and so then I saw the film through to the end. So people were always like, well, that must have been so terrible not having a director around. I'm like, no, it was fucking awesome. You know, I could do whatever I wanted, you know. And so it was really a relationship between me and Graham King, who is the producer, and his producer. His assistant producer, Dennis. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name, but you could look it up. And really, the three of us had a similar vision of the movie, thank God. So and so we were able to work the politics with the studio to get the film we wanted, because that, you know, when people say, oh, it must have been so difficult for you, the difficulty for me wasn't the creative process. I had fun doing that. The difficulty for me was being put in the place of the director to defend the movie, because the director does that. The director battles the studio. The director wages all the different political fights he has to do to protect the movie, and I had to do that. I had sort of done that before with some previous movies with Bryan, because of certain circumstances. So and that's what kept me up at night.
I enjoyed the show. I write songs.
Our lead singer just quit.
Then you'll need someone new.
The head of the studio said this film needs to be Mamma Mia, and we were all, this is not Mamma Mia, you know, and the film needs to be 90 minutes, just 90 minutes. Like, why, you know? And so I'd have these battles until the point it got very heated, and there are games that you have to play. For instance, the head of the studio wanted us to cut the entire sequence where he's I want to break free, and they wanted to cut down to a third length the scene in the living room where he disses the band. And that's like an amazing scene, because that's a very pivotal moment for Freddie and the band, when he says he's not going to continue with them. And the dangerous game we played was, we screened the film with taking those things out. And the game is dangerous because for all we knew, the scores could remain the same, the audience scores, and then we were fucked. But thank God the scores dropped by like 10 points.
Wow.
And so we were able to put those scenes back in. But this is the torture and agony that goes on with filmmaking that people don't talk about.
I love the way you move on stage. The whole room belongs to you.
So what part did Bryan play in this film after all? Like, because he left a couple weeks before. None.
After he was let go, he I guess contractually he wasn't allowed to.
Okay. Because he gave the credit as a director.
He got the director credit because once you cross a certain line of how much you've directed, then you get the credit. And so that's how it worked. And
but do you think it's his film or is it your film? Whose film is it?
I would say both because, frankly, the film wouldn't have happened without him.
Okay.
He was the one, because Bryan's an amazing salesman. He can pitch anything. He can get someone to spend $100 million on a glass of water for a film about a glass of water. So he really got this thing off the ground that had been trying to get off. They had been trying to get this thing off the ground for years, and he came in and really convinced the producer, which is he's great at. So he got the film off the ground. So and look, we had an amazing casting director, but obviously the director has to green light what the casting director suggests, and that was Bryan. And so you have to give him credit for the things he did. And so and the fact that he handed the film off to me, basically, let's just say it wasn't unusual in our relationship. So I see the film as both of ours. Yes.
Okay.
Mark these words. No one will play it clean.
Fortune favors the bold.
I thought sure that when he was fired, he was going to say, "Get the hell off this movie," because of just being, his ego hurt and everything and wanting it to fail without him, right? But he demanded, that I stay on because he knew that as in our past films, I would see it through with the same taste that he would, and I often, he often looks to me to come up with, to be the architect,
Yeah. So you're happy working with him? Like you worked many times to work with him again? That's a tough question, I know.
Very complicated history with us. Let's just say that after X-Men Apocalypse, I told him I can't do anything anymore with him. Not because it's with him. Let me rephrase that. After X-Men Apocalypse, I told him I could no longer do this because it was too much on me to do the scoring and the editing and literally kind of being a de facto producer on the film. I couldn't do that anymore. It was killing me. I'm too old for it now, and because I would lose something like 20 pounds and look like Skeletor at the end of these movies, and so that was supposed to be our last movie together. But then he called me up with this, Bohemian Rhapsody idea. And I'm like, I remember on the phone, I said, "Fuck you." I said, "How can I say no to that?" And so I said, "All right, I'll do it one more time," and so then it went down the road. But as it turned out, I didn't score the film. So actually it was much easier for me. And so in lieu of scoring the movie, I had to defend the film. So I had to do another, a replacement task. But but it was a little easier for me only because I only had one job basically is being the architect.
Ready, Freddie?
Let's do it.
Starting with the order of the events that you're showing, people complain about this is not a documentary, I know, but how did you manage that part of the edit, like mixing things around?
Right. Well, the best biopics fuck with history a bit to make it more cinematic and entertaining. You have to. Otherwise, the film that you're making to try to excite the fans is actually going to ironically bore the fans if you do it exactly the way things happened. Yeah. And this took a lot of work to convince the band to do these things, but they understood at the end of the day that this was the greater good. For instance, and I'll talk about the other thing if I can remember it correctly, but for instance, Freddie never told the band before Live Aid that he had AIDS. He told them after. But this was an imperative the producer's point of view, because telling the band he had AIDS before Live Aid made Live Aid 10 times more emotional. And so you have to, and so I had to keep the narrative going, our story going, despite the band sequences, the music sequences, because again, if I just showed the music sequences, even with Queen's music, it was boring because there was no story going on. I had to constantly show the story under the surface that's happening, you know.
Bohemian Rhapsody won the Oscar for Best Editing at the 2019 Academy Awards. This is interesting because the movie contains several scenes that are masterclasses in poor editing.
There's nothing that pisses me off more than this. So, this guy online, you know, as if he had all the footage and as if he was some editing guru, you know, starts saying the way he would do the scene, and it went viral, you know, and it's like so infuriating because the guy had no idea what footage there was. He had no idea when he says, "Oh, I should have cut to a master." There was no master of the scene, which is the wide shot. The only wide shot it had was this extreme bird's eye view wide shot, you know. And so there's that. But secondly, in the evolution of the editing of the film, there was a version of the movie where the studio wanted me to super fast cut everything because they wanted this to be Mamma Mia and wanted us to be like, what's that movie with Hugh Jackman in the circus and all that?
The Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman. So the way they saved that movie was basically making it so fast cut and so forth. You didn't, it's like almost like a rock video, whatever. And so there was a version of the movie we did and that we screened that failed, of course, because it was ridiculous. And that scene, I never got back to open that scene back up again and make it not cut so fast. And so some of the edits there are faster than I would want, but it's hardly like indicative of the rest of the movie. And this guy is saying like the whole movie, the editor doesn't know what he's doing. I'm like, did you see the other 99.9% of the movie?
He doesn't use that in the footage he's analyzing. He only used that bit.
It's like, anyway, so...
Did he talk to you? Did he write to you? Like,
oh, maybe? No. The guy clearly was like on its attack mission, you know. And I don't know what his beef was. Maybe he's a bitter person. I have no idea. Maybe he's a nice guy. I have no idea. Clearly he knows how to work an Avid because he did all these timeline, you know, the showing the different shots and so forth. But it was frustrating because it was a scene with very limited footage because this was a replacement scene. Okay, if I remember correctly. So after they do their big tour, originally it ended in a theater, and there they meet John Reed inside of a theater, and that's where they had this whole scene meeting their band manager, and we had lots of footage. It was a really well done scene because we had the time. But when we reordered everything, we had to have them meet John Reed in a different way. And I wanted, I'm responsible for having to say this should be an outside pub because I wanted to be outside for a change. Because the original scene meeting John Reed was inside. Everything was inside with the band, you know, performing. So I said, let's have them go outside to a pub. So they did. The problem is that we had very little time that day, and Dexter Fletcher, I think it was one of the first scenes that he was shooting, and they just kind of blew through as fast as they could. And so they didn't have the variety of shots that we really needed. Like there was not even a 4-shot of the table they were sitting at. There's only singles and the bird's eye view, you know. So that was what I was up against, and and so that's what you had to work with. I watched the scene, and it's not bad. I mean, it's not like, you know, you don't know what's going on because it's cut so fast. You know, I mean, it's a stylistic thing, but it's like, you know, anyway.
You need to slow down, Fred.
I think, of course, this wasn't the first biopic musical movie, but you paved the way for the things that came after, like Rocket Man. For instance, we had Better Man a few months ago. It's impossible not to make a comparison between all those movies. So what's your take in that matter? Like paving the way and being like a point of reference to other films?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that the film, despite Freddie's flamboyance and all this stuff and crazy sequences, the film was grounded. It was real. And I think that's the mistake Rocket Man made. Rocket Man was very surreal. And therefore, if something is surreal, you're not going to be as emotional because it's not really, you don't really believe it completely. And so I worked on that. I came in for a couple of weeks and did some tweaks, whatever. But I think that was the issue with Rocket Man. So I'd like to say, at least say that I guess maybe Bohemian Rhapsody provided an example of how if you're very grounded and real with your characters, you're going to be more engaged, obviously, and then you're going to be more emotional. You're going to be more emotionally moved by the story.